Okay, I think we're live here. So excited. I believe this is the third session of the Big Data, Big Questions live session. Let me move that microphone a little bit closer. Oh man, that thing. All things I should have worked out before we went live, right? No. So today, like I said, third session of Big Data, Big Questions where we've gone live. And I'm going to share this out on Twitter as well. So just bear with me as we are setting all this up. So as we're going live, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. So going through these sessions and really trying to interact and find out what's best for my audience. Obviously, what works with my schedule, how I can help out with the community. Some of the things that I'd like to know is if you're watching this right now or you're watching this later, post in the comment section when a good time is. Like, does Saturday mornings work? Does, would a Wednesday afternoon, would a Thursday evening, what are some good times that work best? Right now, I'm trying to target like the weekend. So just trying to get up early whenever I'm coming out to my office and doing some work before jumping into family time. So whatever works best with everyone's schedule. I'm just going to continue to experiment with those. And then also, what is the format? Oh, wait, let me respond here. Still new to this YouTube live, so I don't know when somebody comments in the comment section, should I just say hi on air and not type? So I apologize if I'm still not getting it there. But thanks to everybody for joining. But some of the questions I was talking about that I was looking for is we're just starting out with these live sessions. So I've started doing them on Saturdays and Sundays right now, but I'm looking for like what's the best time for everybody. When I was thinking about maybe mixing in some different times, like doing a Wednesday late afternoon, Thursday late afternoon, or maybe even night, and just kind of mixing those in. And then also the format. So the last few sessions I've talked about, some of the things that I'm doing, that I'm learning about. Also answered questions, and I want to continue to do that. But also sprinkled in some news as well. So if there's any topics or anything or any different kind of format that we should do in these sessions. If you're not watching live right now, put them in the comment section below and let me know, what kind of format you'd like to see. So I had a couple things planned for today, for this morning, that I wanted to go through. I specifically wanted to go through some questions. I got some questions that I'm not going to answer in a video. I'm going to answer here live, but somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and they were just asking some questions. And so I'll just I'll start off with the question and then we can go through it. I said, thanks for the information. They were specifically, this person was, let me scroll back up here to it. But it was, they were trying to get into data science. They're further along in their career and they were looking at it, but they thought they wanted to get into data science, but after kind of doing some research and looking at it, they wanted to get into data engineering. But they were specifically asking around, some of the tips that we've talked about on here, but they were asking about my journey. And kind of, it really made me think. And so, as we were going back and forth on LinkedIn and I was talking, I thought it would be great to share, part of this on here because I've really been thinking about it. I don't know if you saw, I had a comment a while back on one of my videos where somebody was talking about, oh man, and I think it was a joke, but it was, oh, I'm just in it for the money. And I was like, yeah, that's a great, a lot of us choose IT, for our own different reasons. And the cool thing about big data and data engineering is it's in such demand right now that it's great, that we can, it's in the top of all IT, salaries. If you just go out and look at any of the stats. So it's great to be in it because you can provide for your family, because you can, you can be rewarded for all the hard work, right? It's Saturday morning and, you're the people that are watching this now. And if you're watching it at a different time, you're watching this in your spare time, right? To get better. So it's great to be rewarded for that. But at the end of the day, to really sustain and be able to do it, you have to find that passion in it. And it's not to say that everybody's going to be passionate about the same thing. And, your passion can wane, can vary, right? There's times, there's times for me where I'm like, man, I don't want to do any research right now, or I'm not really into it. And so you have to find something that you're passionate about to kind of sustain you. So I was going to share a little bit that I shared with this person around my journey. You know, like I said, we just went back and forth. You can reach out to me on anywhere, and I'll try to answer as best as I can, even if I don't get to it on YouTube here. Pardon me, I'm a little under the weather, but I was just talking about it because he was asking, you know, my journey from a web developer, and it really made me think about it. You know, I've talked about it here. You know, I volunteered on a project, you know, to get in on a Hadoop project. I didn't know it was going to be a Hadoop project to start with, but I mean, I've been doing web development for quite a long time. But part of it for me just came down to, you know, when I really think about it, I liked big data. Oh, I like data analytics early. Like I thought when I graduated college, I thought that, you know, I was going to go back in and I thought I was going to be a database administrator, right? Fast forward to, you know, grinding it out and getting my first job, which, you know, sometimes can be difficult. My first job was a web developer. You know, there was a database component to it, but mostly at the end of the day, I was a full stack web developer. Started off kind of as a junior, but honestly, like in the first 6 months, my boss who built the application that we supported, he took another role and moved along, and I became the only developer within 6 months. So learned along my way, and I really liked being a web developer. But for me, I really still had that passion. I didn't really understand it until I got involved in the project that became a Hadoop project and going to Hadoop Summit. That was really where I wanted to go. So, you know, for me, the journey is, yes, it's great that, you know, the data engineers, data science, machine learning engineers are at the top of the, you know, IT pay scale, but I really have a passion for what we're doing. I mean, if you think about it, this technology touches everything, right? I mean, you know, it's we're helping, you know, if you've watched any of the things going on with, you know, the space race to some extent, and the, you know, we're where we want to colonize on Mars. We're making like docudramas about what it'll be like, and I really think we're there. You know, that's one of my passions is space. But I mean, just every aspect. I mean, look at all the innovation and technology that's came from, you know, Uber and Facebook and Amazon, and all that's possible from data analytics, right? And it all starts with being able to analyze these large data sets. And so, you know, it's passionate for me because I get to talk to people about it. And then, you know, people that are outside of IT, like I was talking to somebody at my gym the other day, and they're, you know, they were just like, man, like, hey, some of the stuff that you post on Instagram or, you know, that I've seen on Twitter from you is, you know, it's like, I don't really understand it, but it's, you know, I just sit there, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, you know, I'm pretty passionate about it. I'm trying to, you know, cross it over, you know, and just, you know, and talk about some of the things that I'm passionate about on Instagram. But it's amazing for me. And like I said, so when I'm talking to somebody that's not in traditional IT and I explain them what I work on, and I'm like, hey, you know, I don't tell them how much I love Hadoop, right? But I mean, I'll talk about, you know, the things that go on. Like, hey, you know, these are the technologies that are possibly going to cure cancer, right? That are helping healthcare make better outcomes. I was just reading an article where they're using natural language processing to be able to go through and pick up on adverse reactions to drugs, or even like over like when you over give people in hospitals medicine, and I mean, and things like that, because they were able to go through, look at all this unstructured data and do natural language processing to pull out key terms to be able to find out, okay, what was going on. So I know that was a little bit of a different kind of Q&A session there, but I was really thinking about that. And like I said, I kind of went back to that comment where it was like, hey, you know, like I said, it was offhand. It was just a joke saying that they were in it for the money, but I mean, you really have to, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this, I don't know, like 6 years in data analytics. And I mean, you have to be passionate about it to sustain it, or it just becomes a career, right? I mean, you know, and I'm not saying that you don't, you know, that people can't be motivated, especially when you're in college and you're you're like, hey man, what is going to be sustain me for a career, you know, when I get out, or if you're in high school planning out what you want to do, right? You just know that yes, you can be drawn there because it's going to provide a great income and great opportunity for you in the future. But you want to latch on to the things that you're passionate about, or like I said, it just becomes another job, right? You know, so. All right, so I'm gonna read some of the questions and answers because I've been droning on, right? So currently working as a data modeler and wants to switch to a career in Spark and Scala. What real-time projects should I do so that my resume will have a better future for the opportunities? So apologize again, like I said, a little under the weather here. So as far as some of the projects that I would get involved with Spark, there's a ton out there. Spark is one of the most contributed and used projects that are going on right now. So there's a lot of things that you can go and find on GitHub. There's some, I don't know how far you're along in your Spark journey. So you're wanting to switch to Spark. So there's a lot of things that you can start doing. As a data modeler and some of the things that you're working on there, I would start trying to incorporate some of the things that you can do with Spark. So I'm not specifically understanding, kind of what all your role is as a data modeler, but my thought process is if you can start using some of that, in your day to day. I don't know, you know, in your current workstation and workflow, there's you like I don't know if you know this, so I'm just going to say it, but with Spark, it doesn't have to run in like Hadoop, right? Like you can actually have it run in a fairly small environment, and you can kind of stand it up and kind of look at it. So if there's some things that you're already doing, maybe you're doing some kind of ETL or anything like that, there's a real big opportunity to do some of that with Spark and kind of even just testing some of the stuff that you're working on out in that environment, right? So like if you're running some kind of ETL function, maybe that's what you're doing, in your day-to-day job, but maybe when you come home, you just try writing that same thing in Spark or Scala, or maybe you're already using that. I don't know, but those are some of the things that I would start to look at. But then you can, once you get that base level understanding, then there's a ton of projects out on GitHub. Maybe I'll do a video and go out and find some, but there's a lot of things there. One thing, if you're looking to just kind of with what you're looking for, and if you wanted to ask me, hey, what is kind of the future of Spark, and what's something that in the next 6 months to 2 years might be a big opportunity to kind of become an expert area in Spark. I did a video on Project Hydrogen, and Project Hydrogen is just it's it's their ability to be able to change up the way that Spark processes jobs. But at the end of the day, just from a high level view, it's the ability to start using Spark for like ETL, or to be able to call on and use GPUs in the fashion for like TensorFlow or PyTorch. So to kind of bridge the gap between the deep learning aspect and what Spark is doing there. So there's a big opportunity. It's called Project Hydrogen. Also, I just went through some stuff in the last couple of weeks where I've been looking around what NVIDIA is doing with Rapids. So I'll put it in the comment section here below so you can make sure that it's spelled. And then for anybody watching this, I'll make sure that I link to something around Rapids. But Rapids is another opportunity, and it's all written in Python, but it gives you the ability to use GPUs to do like ETL and some other pieces. There's a big write-up around what the intention is to use Spark and Rapids, and kind of how there's some kind of merge there. So I don't know if that's going to be involved with Project Hydrogen or not. My assumption is yes, because I've been talking about and looking at Project Hydrogen and kind of following that for the last, I don't know, maybe at least 2-3 months. And now with what they're doing with Rapids, and then they're specifically calling out Databricks and Spark and those pieces. So I definitely look to that as some of the future of what we're seeing. And so basically for anybody, maybe I'll do a special video just on this, but for anybody watching right now, or watching it another time, what they're doing with Rapids is, think of Rapids as just being able to use GPUs to accelerate, what we traditionally would do in Spark or an ETL or anything like that. So the advantage of GPUs over CPUs is you can just process a lot faster, right? So think of ETL jobs that, let's just say they take 3 hours in your workday. As you go through my video of day of the life in the Python developer, a lot of it's sitting around drinking coffee waiting for your ETL jobs to finish, right? But it's using those GPLs to speed up that acceleration. And then really where Project Hydrogen's coming in, and I think Rapids is going to evolve there too. It's going to bridge the gap to allow for you to write a Spark job and be able to use the data that you're using in your Spark job to be able to flush that over and run it against a deep learning network, and your neural networks and other things that if you're doing PyTorch, TensorFlow. The thought process is not just to do TensorFlow. TensorFlow is one of the most popular ones that I talk about, but it's to be able to be, be able to be, flexible to support not just TensorFlow, but PyTorch, but any of the deep learning processing. But there's some changes that they have to do, and I've got a video around that. Excuse me. So, sir, I'm 18 years old. Is there a university or countries to study in the future? What are their names? Please talk about this. Thanks. So let me see. So that's a great question. I'm kind of going to take it from a different approach. There's a ton of colleges and a ton of universities that are very popular for data science and data engineering. Northwestern, Stanford, so some of the big names, and Georgia Tech. There's a lot there, but I think college is valuable. I mean, obviously, like I think you can see, I've got my degrees on the side here, but basically, I think you should go. I think you should pursue, college if that's what you're looking for. But I don't think that you have to go to a huge, big name university to be able to be a data engineer. I don't know if that's where you're going with the question, but I'm just making some assumptions here to try and help. But like I said, you can find, and if you can compete, like, when I graduated high school, I wasn't smart enough to go to I hadn't put in the work and done the things to go to, Stanford or, some of the Ivy League colleges there. But I don't know that you have to go to some of the higher named, universities to be able to go. I don't, I've talked about it here. You've seen me comment. Not necessarily do you have to have gone to college to be a data engineer or data scientist, right? It's, that's IT development. It's the big equalizer. So I'm reading a book right now about, the startup, the kind of behind the scenes of when Snapchat was starting up. And one of the things the author brings out in the book and they talk about is how IT and development is like, it's just like basketball players or any kind of professional athletes, right? Like you can at 18 to 20 you can be just as good as somebody that's 20, 30 years experienced, right? And that's why Facebook and Snapchat and a lot of the innovation that comes in from development, it's about okay, you can some people can be born and can work hard through high school and be one of the best developers on the planet because if you've most of us, everybody that's watching this probably has a laptop, right? You have a laptop and you can download, like we were just talking about Spark, you can download Python and start going away and start building your own project in years over years. So, the threshold to get in and be there is very low. And that's why we see so many things. So basically what I'm trying to say is like, at 18, for sure, go to college. But if you don't get into one of the bigger universities, don't feel like you have to get that to be able to get where you want. I mean, a lot of these stories that we read, not everybody went to Stanford, right? Not everybody went to Northwestern or, some of the Ivy League colleges. Some people went to, some smaller schools or 2-year institutions, or some of them didn't, right? Some of them went straight from college and started interning. So, it's all about your journey and kind of how much you want to put in. And my recommendation for you would be, as you're going to college, make sure you're involved in some of the projects that we talked about here. Like you can go right now, doesn't matter if you're 18, doesn't matter if I'm thinking matters if you're 14, but whatever age you are, you can go out right now and subscribe and pull down Spark. So you can subscribe to the mailing list for the Spark developers. You can look at the Jira, you can see all the issues and some of the things that they're doing. You can actually start looking at those tickets, download the code, and start trying to fix some of those things. Now, are you going to be able to do that day one if you haven't been involved? Maybe not. But if you start following it and if you download it and start looking at it, at some point maybe you can answer a question, or maybe you can fix one of the bug fixes in there, get it submitted, and now you're a Spark contributor. So in 18, 20. And maybe you didn't go to a university, or maybe you did go to a big university. It doesn't matter, right? I mean, and Spark's one of the projects that we talk about. So just go out there and find anything that you're kind of involved with and interested in, and get to working with it. So that's you've probably heard me say it 100 times on this show, but I mean, it's such an important concept because I mean, it's the people that are building, that are the big name data engineers, or software engineers, on the planet. They're building this stuff in open source, and you can interact with them. Like you can get on here and you can send them an email, and if you're on the mailing list, and help them build things and get involved. So I mean that's I've talked going back and forth with some of the co-founders from Hortonworks years ago, or in the early days, all through the pig and a Hive mailing list, just, with being involved and kind of taking time there. So I'm going to jump to another question, and I'm checking the time. So full disclosure, I've only got probably 10 more minutes and before I have to leave. My 6-year-old is turning 7 this month, and we are doing her birthday party at one of those gymnastics places. And so I have to rush back in the house, help my wife, and then we were going to head off to that for a birthday party. So, but I appreciate the questions. And like I said, still real new with this YouTube Live, but I'm liking it, and I'm looking for any suggestions, and just having the interaction with the community here is great. So hi, Thomas. I've started studying Hadoop and other technologies, but I was curious to know how to find good data sets to learn and to start programming on Hive, QL, or Pig, etc. I did a video a while back around some of the data sources. So I'm not sure the name of it, but I think it was like the top 4 data sets. But with that being said, there's always some different data sets that you can find. I do the same thing. Full disclosure, I do the same thing for a lot of the data sets and some of the videos that I've posted here. And I'll try to post in the comment section below, but there's a lot of data sets you can go out and find. So like for some of my Pluralsight courses, like I'll use just open data sets that are out there. So I'll need to, let me see, I've got actually, you can't see my screen, but I've actually got a tab up here that's called data sets, and it's just different data sets. So I've got one here for Tableau's public. I'll post it up. I wish I could share my screen right now, but I'm going through right now. Here's some public data sets now. I mean, some of it, especially for what you're trying to do with Hive and some other things, you can kind of go through. But here's some of them, like the 2018 FIFA World Cup roster, some global sports finances. So it's like the pay of the top athletes around the planet. Here's some educational stuff and some public data sets. So like wildfire strikes in 2015. So if you think about that, that's like I think it's like wildfires that they see, and I'm not really sure. I guess I shouldn't try to read this live on here. But as you go through, home sales is another big one. So there's I'll put it. I think I can do this. Hold on. Like I said, I'm learning live here too. So if you're watching this at a different time, I don't know if you have access to the chat. I'll put it in the comment section here below. Here's the list of resources that I was actually just reading off of. This is one of many, but you can go out there. Like I said, I do have a video that's like the top 4. Kaggle was another one. So that's some of the stuff that I've used in the past. I've used like weather data too. So there's a lot of things you can do with weather data, and stock market data is out there too. So I know for one of, I think it was my I think it was my HDFS from the command line course. I went through and I just did like different data sets and pulled like Apple stock and all kinds of different stuff and started playing around with that. So I don't know. Hopefully this helps. I mean, like I said, this is a huge resource. Man, I forgot that I had this saved. So really cool stuff here. So I hope that'll get you started. Like I said, these are, I believe, maybe I should click on this to make sure it's. I want to make sure you get, yep, it started downloading a data set, and I'm looking at it right now just to confirm. Oh, perfect. Oh, and I will say another one, since I'm on the subject, data sets, man, that's something you always have to find. So great question. I found one, like I said, I was talking about earlier how we're going to go to Mars and stuff like that. So I'm originally from the Huntsville, Alabama area. I don't know how much you know about that area, but it's where really where we developed and developed rockets and went to the moon. So NASA has a big presence there. So as a kid, I had like my dad was like a security guard or something like that, and he worked security at one of the facilities where they did some research or something like that. But long story short, like he knew some astronauts, and so like I had framed images of astronauts on my wall. How much of a nerd am I? But so I'm a big space buff. So going back to data sets, there's a couple sites out there you can find some NASA data too, and so like you can find like NASA data on meteor strikes and some other things like that too. So that's another data set that I use as well. So hopefully, like I said, and this is data. So man, I'm excited that this is also being able to chat here and be able to send you the link within. So hopefully that can get you going today. is it really needed to learn Spark along with Hadoop? I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you're going to do. And you've, man, I don't know how many of my videos you've followed, but I really break down and talk a little bit about the differences between Hadoop. And I use Hadoop as a catch-all term as well, too. So like I try to say Hadoop ecosystem because where we traditionally looked at Hadoop, right? Because Hadoop for a long time was, HDFS and MapReduce together. That was Hadoop, right? When Hadoop 1.0 came out. But now, with Yarn and everything like that, we broke it apart. So now if you think about Hadoop, it's HDFS, MapReduce, which is still very popular, right? I mean, I think the last live session we were on here, somebody shared their interview experience, and they were, I think they were asked some questions around Java MapReduce. I know there was a MapReduce component to it, so thought that was pretty interesting. Somebody, and I believe he had just gotten the job too, so congratulations again. But so MapReduce is still big, but if you think about it, once again, from a Hadoop perspective, you got your HDFS portion, and then you've got your, MapReduce, and then now you kind of got Yarn. But let's just kind of go back to that. So the MapReduce, and then Tez. Well, where Spark kind of fits in is it gives you that processing power, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's a way to process the data. Doesn't have to live in HDFS here. And these hand puppets here. It doesn't have to live in HDFS here, but it can live in other places. Traditionally, it does, right? So do you have to learn Spark? No, you don't have to learn Spark, but you're going to want to learn some of the other ecosystem tools probably, right? Like we were just talking about Pig and Hive. And, on the back end, well, Pig's kind of, Pig uses MapReduce, and I think Hive does too, but they're switching as well. I haven't followed along with them as much, but I know maybe it was last year. I don't know. Last year, I knew that they just updated the Pig book, but they've moved Pig and some Pig jobs to be able to process and do in Tez. So I went through a session where I was watching some folks from Yahoo talk about how they did that switch over. So no, you don't have to learn Spark. It all goes back to obviously to kind of where I've talked about. Do you want to be a Hadoop administrator? Do you want to be a Hadoop developer? So you've got a lot of different things there. I will say if you're going to be a Hadoop developer, probably, yeah. I mean, I would learn Spark if that was my case. But if you wanted to get into the administration and that portion of Hadoop, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I've spent a ton of time actually in the last couple of years. Really digging into that side of it. I've kind of come back on to the programming side here lately. Just kind of getting through with some of the deep learning stuff you've seen me talking about with Python and other pieces. But yeah, I mean, with the Hadoop administration side, you necessarily wouldn't have to learn Spark, so to say. You'd still want to be able to write, bring it over and import it and things like that. But I don't know. Like I said, just depends on what you want to do. So no, you don't have to learn Spark, but and I mean, I'm sure there are organizations and places out there where they don't use Spark at all. So no, you don't have to, but just understand, Hadoop and the term Hadoop ecosystem and kind of, some of the tools that support it out there. I'm curious, can our programming language be used for data engineering? Man, that's a good question. I would say it does. I mean, it is. I don't have as much experience with R. I'll be honest there. I've seen it and I've heard it, talked about it. I think of it traditionally more in the data science world. I'm probably wrong. Somebody's going to comment in this video at some other point and tell me, that I'm wrong there. So I'm pretty sure that you can from a data engineering perspective. I will say that there are a lot of people that are big in, that are big into R, and there are some people that are big into Python. And it's just like any other language or any other kind of IT development tool, right? Like some people like their tools and like what they have there. So I know there's a lot, there was a lot of excitement and a lot of content and a lot of resources out there for R about 2 to 3 years ago. There still probably is, but I will say the majority of what I've been reading and watching up on is around Python. Now, that's not to say that R is going away or anything like that. Don't tell people don't tell people that's what I'm saying. I'm just kind of giving where I'm looking for. So like I talk about a lot on this channel. I'm sure sometimes you might get tired of hearing me say it. It's going to depend at what you're trying to do. And then honestly, if you're a freelancer or a contractor, like what kind of projects are you looking to take on? Or if you're looking to, move internally at your company or, outside of your company to a new career, what are they using, right? So like I said, traditionally, I've looked at it more as a data science tool. I will say that the lines between a data engineer, data engineer and data scientist kind of have blurred a little bit. That's where I talk about like that machine learning engineer kind of in the middle. So so to say that it's not used for data engineering, I'm sure I would be wrong on it. But for a lot of what I talk about with big data, I don't see it being used as much. Like I said, I could be wrong. Is it important to know high level math or statistics to be a data engineer? Oh man, I love that question. I love that question. It's almost like I paid somebody to ask that question. I didn't, I promise. But oh man, that is so awesome. And the reason I think that's awesome is because, man, I have shied away from like, I mean, I knew a little bit of the math and some of the other things. And honestly, when I first started in big data, like, yeah, I was like, I didn't even know the difference between a data scientist and a data engineer. And so, like I said, this was in the early days of Hadoop. I call it the early days. It was like Hadoop 1.0 when they were just converting. It was right about the time before we had just run into Hadoop 2.0. But I didn't understand the differences. This is going to be a long answer. I'm sorry, but I didn't understand the differences at first. And so I was like, oh man, what algorithm am I going to recommend? And my senior architect came over to me and put his arm around me. It was all over conference call, so he didn't really hug me, but he virtually put his arm around me. He's like, hey, Thomas, there's people that get paid a lot of money and have a lot of background into recommending algorithms. That's not going to be our role. And I was like, what? I was like, I didn't understand it. I was like, you don't know what he's talking about, Of course, right? The guy who's just learned Hadoop, me, is trying to tell this my senior architect, who was a very nice guy and very mentoring, right? Like, nah, you don't know what he's talking about, right? So fast forward a couple more months, and I was like, oh man, this is not. There's so much to this that. So that being said, that's how green I was at the time from that perspective. So I think it is. I don't think you have to. So going back to your question, I don't think you have to as a data engineer. I think it's very beneficial if you start now. This is, we can, as technologists, as developers, we all become very verbose, right? We get extreme. So I would start, yes, understanding some of the high level math and statistics to know, okay, what are some, what are we talking about? Like one of the big things that we used was SVD. So we used SVD. So I had to be able to understand at a high level what SVD was doing, right? And one of it was my curiosity, but as far as like tweaking the parameters and everything like that, I didn't do that. That wasn't where I was. That wasn't kind of my role. So I think from a high level, yes, you should know the math and the statistics. From a high level, you shouldn't as a data engineer. I mean, I hate saying depends. I'm not going to say it depends here. As if you're in your silo and you're in your bucket, you're not going to be recommending which algorithms to use. You can have an opinion and you can kind of try to guess in your head, but at the end of the day, that should really roll to your data scientist and some of the things that they're doing there. Will that change in the future? I think that's kind of where that machine learning engineer kind of comes in. So all that being said, yes, it is very important to know those statistics and some of the other things. I will say one of the reasons that I almost danced and was jumping around about that is I'm starting to actually go through some of that. I think if you've been following me, you've seen where around the first of the year, I went through a machine learning engineer course on Coursera, Andrew Ying's course. Man, it was, I mean, if you go back and look at the videos, I did it with the Big Data Beard team. If you go back and look at some of the videos, it was very hard for me at first, just with overcoming some of the math and some of the statistics. And I mean, I'd been in the community for a while. That doesn't mean anything, but that shows that, hey, I was actively involved in the community, and I mean, it was pretty hard for me, right? So those are some of the things that I've done, and then I've really started getting into more of the math, and I'll do some videos on it. But the Google Crash Course, and I'm about to go through another iteration and get a certification around some of the deep learning statistics and math. So, but as a data engineer, you don't have to know those. Like I said, I'm venturing more into that area just because I'm curious, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing with deep learning and some of the stuff I was just talking about earlier around Spark and Rapids and kind of where the conversion is going to come. So, great question. So last question. I'm like 5 minutes over. My wife is going to be so mad. All right. So how do you prepare for the CCA 175 exam? I'll be honest. I'll have to Google and look up. I'm not sure what that exam is. Let me see. Is that the 175? Oh, okay. So the Spark exam, I haven't taken that exam, but I have a video with one of my counterparts at Pluralsight who has. So if you wanted to throw that question in there, and I'll talk to him. I've traditionally been more on the Hortonworks side, so I don't know. I probably have some questions and some thoughts around how to best answer that, but I don't think that me trying to answer it right here is gonna be best. So I've looked at it. I know they've changed some of the ways that they've approached it. I've got a video that's coming out next week because people have been asking me, okay, should I go down this route with some of the changes and everything like that? Continue down your route. Don't take me telling you about a video that's coming out to change it. But I need to look at that a little bit better. Like I said, I know they've changed the way that they do some of the used to be, I think it used to just be like, ABCD, kind of more, I don't know what they call that, like, not theoretical, but it's just Q&A, but I think it's more scenario based. I know they do that for the big data engineer course. So man, it's hard to stop. All right, last question. How to get started with Hadoop technologies? For the most part, like what I would do, how I got started is just downloading the sandboxes and playing around there. So I've got a ton of tutorials to just start out on my website. So I'll put it in the comment section here, thomashenson.com. You can see these don't cost anything. They're just, me showing some basic pig Latin and some other things. I think I've got sample data sets out there too. So you can go through and look at those. Oh man, I spelled my website wrong. You can tell I'm rushing right now, so I'm so sorry. So, so I would go through that. They have some of the tutorials on there. I will say I'm a Pluralsight author. I'm at 5 courses right now. I should have my 6th course out before the end of the year. There's definitely an opportunity, to go through, and I do the basics of HDFS from the command line. I take all mine for the beginner's approach too. So for what I'm trying to do on my courses, I really target the people that are just starting out, because I remember how hard it was when I started out, and not to be the old person to say, oh, back in the day it was really hard, but it was really hard. It was really a lot different. So there's so much innovation, so many different things now. But so I've got some free tutorials out there. Like I said, I'm a Pluralsight author. I'd love it if you're interested in data engineering, if you watch my courses, tell me what you thought about them too. That would be great. So I've got courses, all around big data and data analytics with I go through two levels of the Hortonworks that follow along with the Hortonworks certification. I've got the HDFS from the command line course. I've got a pig Latin course, which was my very first course. And then I've also got a Splunk course, which we'll talk a little bit more about Splunk here in the future. So thanks everyone. Like I said, I've got to go. I've got a birthday party to go to. So I appreciate it. Thanks everyone. And thanks to anybody that's watching this. Make sure you subscribe and let me know what you think about this session and the format, time frame, anything. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Everyone have a great weekend.